responsibility, sir. And therefore, when I can listen to people come to this chamber and do not connect with the reality of this world, but will continue with a type of politics, sir, that suggests to me that all we want to do is fool Barbadians into believing that you are better than the other and everybody except you is corrupt, when your actions on their own and by dint of what you have done, by taking the people's vote away from them who did not repose their trust and confidence in the party that you have gone over to, will suggest to me that that in itself is the greatest disservice that has taken place on the people of Christchurch South, sir. And Mr. Speaker, I feel as though we need to take fresh guard, Mr. Speaker. Politics in Barbados has reached the point now where the public seems to be more excited, sir, about the salaciousness and not the facts. And my heart bleeds for Barbadians because I sincerely come in this place, sir, to make sure we do what is right by Barbadians. And I sincerely go to cabinet, and we are told that we are in a cabinet where we cannot speak. Mr. Speaker, that is wrong. And to tell Barbadians that is to create this kind of environment, sir, that would suggest to all of us that we are all little boys and girls sitting in a cabinet and don't have a voice. Mr. Speaker, nothing will pass in cabinet unless we all agree to it. And many times we have objected to things in cabinet, sir. And the chairman of cabinet has to accept our views and our opinions. So that for someone to come in here and make that statement, sir, Barbadians, I am warning you, you are dealing with a very dangerous individual. Power hungry and deceitful. That is the point. Now, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, be very careful with the adjectives that you are using.
I'm guided by you, sir.
To ensure that you use parliamentary
I'm guided by
language
you, sir.
Only.
So, Mr. Speaker, I would want to say then that we should be careful with anyone, sir, who is capable of coming to this chamber and seeking to portent that their conduct is greater than all else when their records show otherwise. Mr. Speaker, we were told yesterday, sir, that there was no growth in agriculture. Now, in the estimate, sir, in the well of Parliament, I presented to this honourable chamber. I'm looking at the clock, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I will give you adequate warning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I presented in this chamber, sir, growth in agriculture in 2023 over 2022 at 21%, sir. Mr. Speaker, when I finish my introduction, the honourable leader of the opposition, and I'm not so sure the conduct was honourable, but I remain honourable to this chamber. He turned around and said that public servants came in here and were forced to lie, Mr. Speaker, sir. That represents the greatest dishonour of this House, sir. Because the document that I read from was prepared by my permanent secretary, my planning unit, and all of the technical officers in my ministry, sir. And I said then, and I will say again, that I take umbrage to the fact that in your quest, Mr. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, to seek to impress the government, the public, sir, you have resigned yourself to calling public servants liars. Sir, I did not and do not prepare any documents for the estimate, sir. And no honourable member in here prepares a final document for this debate, sir. These things are fed to us through the public servants who collates all the information and submit to us, sir. And the notion yesterday, again, in a very tacit way, to suggest that there was no growth in agriculture based on the work done, sir, by my officers in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutritional Security is really and truly dishonorable conduct, sir. And I want to place on record, and I want to warn all public servants to be wary of who they're dealing with. Because you cannot come to this place is the highest of all offices in this country, sir. And to come in here and reduce public servants to being liars, sir, I take umbrage to that. And I've spoken, sir, and it seems to me that I have to continuously repeating what I've said about the agricultural sector in order for the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, or wherever he belongs, because he doesn't visit Christchurch South, to understand what I've said. He continues to confuse things. Now, the sheep talk in Guyana, I'm not going to get into that again. I know there was a cloning of a sheep called Molly, and if by some accident we sent Molly to Guyana, and now he's miserable, I've asked Dr. McLean to search for Molly so we can bring her back, and he does not have to continue to excite himself by self-induced excitement. But that is all I would say, sir, because self-induced excitement is nothing more than what I consider to be a moment in time where you fail to recognize that was not real, sir. And Molly, we will search for. But this agricultural sector cannot be the subject of people telling lies, sir. It cannot be. And whoever is misleading the honourable member should take stock of what they're doing. Now, I don't know if he's getting his information from the failure that was anchored at National Housing Corporation for many years but has achieved nothing, or from Mr. Ready-Made Jacket, who continues to speak on these issues as though he's the only authority, being a former Minister of Agriculture and has nothing to show for his time. But Mr. Ready-Made Jacket will continue to send messages to brass tacks and all over the place to suggest to Barbadians that we don't know what we're doing. I agree that everybody has an opinion, and I respect and accept that, sir. But you cannot continue to come across as though the officers in my ministry, sir, are nothing more than a bunch of people who are seeking to mislead this public. Sir, it is wrong. Ask your questions, give your opinion. But you cannot tell them if they say to us that we had growth in 2023 over 2022 that they're lying, sir. It is wrong. Now what we did is that we took a measurement of a 15 years period, Mr. Speaker, because I asked my permanent secretary to let us look at the sector holistically. We cannot continue to function in an environment where we seek to provide information only to suit our narrow agenda, sir. And therefore, I've asked that we look at a 15-year period to see what was happening in the sector. Mr. Speaker, we were not the government in 2008, sir. We became the government in 2023. In 2008, Mr. Speaker, this agricultural sector went through major fluctuations, sir. But the point that I took away from the information that was given to me, that in spite of the fact that we had our ups and downs in the sector, which tells me that it was not stable and will continue along that path. In 2020, Mr. Speaker, Barbados recorded its highest ever production in the sector over that 15-year measuring period of 30.3 million kilograms of production. And Mr. Speaker, I am completely disturbed to understand how every time I say this, every time I say it, the opposition leader is reducing it to being a lie, sir. You can't do that to public servants, sir. And every time we speak about the sector, he seeks to misunderstand everything I have said. And I do not know why. I mean, yes, we all getting up in age. And at the rate that I see the shakes that he goes through in his presentation, sir, I want to pardon his age because I too are around the same age group as him. But I'm asking myself if he's leaning towards something that is slowing down his rate of understanding what is being presented. Because you can't tell me that I've said over and over and over again, 2020 was Barbados' best year in agriculture in terms of crop production, sir. Mr. Speaker, we want to take this country, sir, and all those in their quest for power in Barbados.
Honourable, you have 5 more minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All those in their quest for power in Barbados are asking Barbadians to forget the past. Forget that there was COVID-19. COVID-19 disrupted the entire world. And that is why he said global economies are still struggling. Many of them are still on their knees, sir. Because if you appreciate the fact that for 2 years, economies and the world were in shutdown, and that we were isolated from each other, then you start to understand the gravity of what took place. But we must ignore the fact that there was COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, we must also ignore the fact that there was sewage on the streets on the South Coast, sir. But that happened. We can't ignore it. And a government was in place for well over 2 years watching sewage on the streets, sir. How can we ignore the fact that garbage wasn't being collected? How can we ignore the fact and don't remind the public that there were no buses? The Honourable Member for Christchurch West took us on a tour of the Fairchild Street bus stand to see people sitting down, complaining they were waiting for 3 and 4 hours, sir. Can we forget that, sir? Can I ignore the fact that people who were working in the ASH program in this world, and this government too, had to face the greatest challenges known over 100 years to Barbadians? We had COVID-19, we had the La Soufriere volcano, we had a freak storm, we had Hurricane Elsa, and then, Mr. Speaker, if you thought that you were going to come out of that, then there was a war with Russia and Ukraine that disrupted supplies and logistics, sir. And, sir, then you had issues with the cost of fertilizers increasing, issues with shipping, a global rate of inflation that will definitely impact Barbados, sir. And then you want to say that we didn't have growth because it was led by inflation, sir. Growth is growth. And I want the public to understand that when you're talking about growth, you're not talking about some simple kind of arithmetic to arrive at growth, sir. You look at the performance of all the sectors in the economy, sir, to determine growth. And the fact that the Honourable Member for Christchurch South would come in here and seek to deflect what we have achieved, sir, is also dishonourable, sir. And you may debate these things, you know. Now, I know that he does not have the cerebral to discuss economic theory, sir. He's not a finance person. He sounds to me like a very good and articulate lawyer. But certainly, no one near the understanding of finance, sir. And I feel as though I have been done a wrong and a disservice, sir, as a Barbadian citizen. And all those innocent people out there have been done a wrong as well when they are being told that there was no growth in the economy and that it was only driven by inflation. When you hear people speaking economic theory and you don't understand it, stay out of it. Stay out of it. Because you come in here and you give us a berriffle of foolishness. And the example that he used as well made it even worse. It told me clearly, here's a man out of his debt, but only following a script that was given to him, sir.
Honourable has 2 more minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to quickly turn my attention to the livestock sector, sir. I made it very clear that in 2023, livestock fell below 2022, and that we had a decline of 2%. I made it clear that the livestock sector, and I will read it again, Mr. Speaker, just to give clarity. It is recognized that the industry requires some immediate stimulus in order to remain viable. Some of the ministry's initiatives to resuscitate the livestock industry are introduced later in the document, and that is the estimates document that the honourable member did not refer to and cannot read, sir. These initiatives focus on both the quality and quantity of animals available to farmers. Mr. Speaker, coming off this, we met with the Minister of Finance, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, the Prime Minister, who is also the Minister of Finance.
Could the honourable member wind up, please?
Yes, I'm landing shortly, Mr. Speaker. And we worked with the dairy farmers to come up with the initiatives that were laid in this Parliament in the budget, sir. And we are now working to reintroduce a guilt program for pork farmers to make sure we can ramp up pork production, sir. So that if you did not check the estimates, you will not know. And if you don't know where to find it in the estimates, you're worse off. So you come in here calling a bluff and trying to make people believe that you know what you're talking about when you're totally lost on what was in the estimates, sir. And Mr. Speaker, I am completely dissatisfied with the fact that my ministry can be treated in the manner in which it was treated, as if Barbadians only want to hear lies and that there is nothing good happening in this sector, sir. Sir, I wish I had more time to delve into all the things that are happening, sir, including the tissue culture lab and all that is going to give us growth and further production in the sector and our seed bank. But Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I wish to warn all Barbadians that they need to be careful, because whilst it is true people want opposition, be careful with who you choose to be your opposition, sir. I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I want to, at the outset, give my support, endorse this budget fully. I also want to thank those good people of the constituency of St. Andrew and all the 5 parishes that make up that constituency for reposing their confidence in me once again and giving me the opportunity to come here and speak on behalf of them and of the good people of Barbados. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the budget on Monday, and there were a lot of things that I support, a lot of big things, those macro things, but there were some smaller things. One thing in particular that stood out to me that I want to lead off with first this morning. In her presentation, the Prime Minister said with effect from June 1st, 2024, 5 personal days will be provided to public servants to deal with emergent personal and family matters. And this may seem like a small matter, but to me, this is one of the most important things coming out of that budget on Monday, because there are a lot of people in this country, a lot of public servants, they're dealing with mental health issues, dealing with stress at work, and having to duck out and run to doctor to get time off, and having to be home feeling guilty because they're tired and because they're burnt out. This provides them with an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to take those days, go and deal with themselves and rejuvenate, go and look after their sick members of their family, go and do their exams, deal with the death, deal with the homelessness, the breakups, everything that people are going through. A lot of people are going through things. And one of the things coming out of COVID is how important our mental health is. And you can't have a situation where you're at work and because the boss don't like you or don't care for you, you're made to suffer. You can't get a day off to do nothing, or they want to cut your money. They want to put pressure on you. These are things that people are going through every day, and now I see that persons, I don't hope they don't abuse it, but I know they will use it because mental health is important. It's important that people can feel that they can take a day for themselves without being made to feel guilty. And that is important. That is just as important as having a raise to pay or not having any more taxes imposed on you. You as your personal well-being, a well-being day, a me day. Where I'm just looking out for me, taking care of me, so that I can be productive when I go back to work the next day. Because burnout is real. Stress is real, and it's a killer. So, Mrs. Spear, I just wanted to start by saying I really support this move. This is a master move. It might look like a small thing, but those out there in the public, those small persons working in public service who are suffering under an oppressive boss will benefit from this here, Mrs. Speaker. So I just wanted to put out there because it's something that impacts the small man. I'm always out there. I always look out for the small man. That's been my thing from the start. And I will continue to look out for it. But I want to address something that was said yesterday by the member for Christchurch South, where you look at Rose. Now, Rose, I may come from a constituency where Rose is a big thing. The rehabilitation of Rose is a big thing. And if I were to start with some of the programs that we're looking at in our ministry, let me start with the newborn, the baby, the Million Pave program. The Honourable member for Christchurch South said yesterday that they're waiting for the rains to come. And for some reason, there are people like him out there waiting with bated breath for rains to come because they believe, for some reason, because we did all these roads and we did them quickly and we did them all across Barbados so that all Barbadians could benefit, that somehow that the rain will wash away these roads. I don't know where they got that from. I mean, he ain't need an engineer, but someone is telling him that because roads were done in numbers, and instead of doing one road every 3 months or every 4 months, we did 15, 20 roads in quick time. It's wickedness. Is that what it is? That people just hoping that the roads get washed away? But they didn't get washed away before. Why would they get washed away now? Because we build them quickly. Because we build them all across Barbados. Because we give people more than they expected. Just a couple months ago, December, January, people were complaining about potholes. In this country, potholes everywhere. The top of potholes. But I'm talking about the potholes now. Because as I said, we give them more than they expected. They expected that we will fix the potholes, but we went a step further and fix the whole road. And now you got people coming here hoping that the rains come, that we get the ground will wash away the road and mash up the road. I don't understand it. It's nonsense. In fact, apart from people complaining about potholes now, if you were to ask the Honourable member, any of the members from here, no, people complaining about the roads so smooth now that people driving, people speeding on the roads. So now the biggest complaint we get now is for speed bumps, speed humps. Because there's so many smooth roads, people see smooth road, they put their foot on the gas. It's unfortunate. But it's something that we have to deal with. Because A, we're not going to stop paving the roads. We're not going to stop fixing the roads. B, we can't put speed humps on every road. It's not practical. But we have to talk to those drivers who are complaining, who are driving so fast because they see piece of new road. It's a thing about us. But that's the biggest complaint we're getting right now. No more potholes. Yes, there's still 1 or 2 potholes. We're still working. There's still an everyday job, but potholes are not a big issue now. We have good roads, but yet we have people want the roads to mash up. Why? So they can still walk. That we waste money. That's what they want. I don't get it. And the thing about it is that the same people that build the roads that were taking 6 months and building every 3 months or every 4 months, are the same people building roads now. Using the same techniques, same methodologies. So the only thing that's changed is that money was made available by the Prime Minister, the tune of $30 million, to do the roads quickly. That's the main difference. So I don't know where this idea come from that the roads will wash away all of a sudden roads would start washing away in Barbados because they were done quickly. Because let me tell you something. I said it before, I say it again, the roads were also not only done quickly, but they're done properly. Properly. There's some roads I would have liked to see the roads dug up and mill and pave quick so. But then when the contractor and the consultants go, they say, listen, you know what? This road does not have a good foundation. This road has too much soft spots. This road cannot be done under mill and pave. You have to do it under another program. Because we're not going to build a road that in 2 or 3 years, the road starts to sink. And when it's possible to replace those small, because you don't know what's underneath there sometimes until you mill off. And you find a soft spot here or there. You don't just pave over it. You dig it out. You put in sometimes a couple feet of marrow fill in there, and you compact it back. That's how it's done. That's how it's been done. So you see certain roads taking too long. It's not because the contractor lazy or the contractor won't finish the road or work on another project. It's that some roads require, after you went in, the roads require additional work in terms of shoring up the foundation or the sub-base of the road. And that's what we've been doing. So we are building proper roads across Barbados. Proper roads, they're not going to wash away as much as they would like to see them. They will not wash away. And that's just the mill and pave, and that's the baby. They wanted to put that out there. And because the road is done quickly, don't mean that your road is done badly. It's not. And then we also have other road programs going on. For the first time in so many years, I'm an MP that represents the North, the Scotland district, St. Andrew. And when you go around Scotland district, now down there is a buzz with work, a buzz. St. Joseph Road building, St. Andrew Road building, down in St. Lucy, St. Thomas, St. John, St. Peter. Every place you look, work is ongoing across Barbados, across the north parts of Barbados, where historically we don't have gotten the attention, but they're getting attention now under this government. All the people in the north, all those places I just called it just now, people were suffering by roads for years. The honorable member for St. Peter could tell you. The honorable member for St. Lucy could tell you. If the honorable member for St. Joseph was in here, he would tell you. The honorable member for St. Thomas has been telling us for years. And now, as the honorable member for St. Andrew can also tell you that we've been struggling with our roads, with our infrastructure, which has, in some cases, the bridges are not because anybody. It's just, in fact, the matter is that some aspects of our infrastructure has not been repaired. Some have been, some have not been. And what we've been seeing that's forced our hands is that now, 40 years later, 50 years later, a lot of our bridges are starting to fail at the same time. So you have a bridge fail in St. Joseph, bridge fail in St. Andrew, all happen at the same time. Bridge fail in St. Thomas, all at the same time, for the same reason. They're old, there's a lot more traffic on the road, heavier traffic on the road, and in some cases they build on mud. All those reasons combined, making it difficult and making it that a lot of our infrastructure is fail. But now our government is putting money there. I remember the member for St. Joseph saying that at some point, $15 million was allocated to do all the Scotland district. And $15 million can't even do two proper bridges in St. Andrew or in St. Joseph. That's why we had to put over $200 million. And that's just $200 million into that Scotland district because there are a lot of people living down there. Hard-working Barbadian people living down there. They're not cow and sheep down there like what some people from the other side would like to send down there. I heard a man on the radio talking about depopulating St. Andrew, depopulating the Scotland district. Madness. Over my dead body. Over my dead body, man. But there are people down there, thousands of people down there, and they deserve proper roads, proper infrastructure, and that's exactly what they're getting under this government. They could go on and on about the different road programs. There's CAF, there's RCC, all intended to ensure that some of the major arteries leading in and out of the Scotland district and into the north of the country and the center of the country, talking about St. Thomas now, that those roads are paved, those roads are rehabilitated. That's what this government is doing. But I know I don't have a lot of time, but I want to touch on a number of different things, but I had to get that.
You have 5 more minutes to touch on a lot of things.
You might now start.
Yeah, I know that. That's why,
I know.
that's why I give you the warning.
And I want to also look to at some of the efforts that the monies that were put into the Met Office. I mean, these little monies, people do not pay a lot of attention, but the Met Office. I didn't get too far into it. I give it as it relates to water. Don't worry. You know, do water. You understand? And having us, giving us that early warning, helping us to be prepared and be a bit more resilient. Because we have to be resilient. I mean, the honourable member just mentioned for St. Philip South, just said that in 2020, we were hit with a pandemic, 21, ash, 21, freak storm. Then the next week, Hurricane Elsa. And then when you thought it done, university didn't done with me yet. You understand? They had war and rumors of wars. You know, you got a crisis in Haiti that it's going to impact us somewhere, and I don't know how yet. But we have to be resilient in order to combat these things. And resilient as it relates to food resilience, because any climate change, any impact on the climate is going to have an impact on food supply. Reducing in water is going to see a reduction in yield. Reduction in yield is going to incur an increase in costs. So these things have knock-on effects. But I like some of the measures that were put in place to ensure that the small man in the household in St. John and St. Andrew and St. Lucy and St. Peter, where we still have some pockets of water issues. That the Prime Minister put measures in place to ensure that those people, those households remain resilient. $1.5 million provide for water-saving devices. Then there's also the waiver on the import of import duties and VAT on generators and transfer switches. These are things that you need in terms of resilience. And then there's also which is even more important, the waiver of VAT on generators, on tanks, septic tanks, electric pumps, pressure tanks, all these things that we use to pump water into our homes. Not the septic tank, the other three, to pump water into our homes. Because those houses where we still suffer from low water pressure because of the mains. So being so heavily encrusted sometimes, being so old. Those places you need to have a water tank. Because if the pipe is going off every day, like in the north, like far north, you need to have a water tank. And yes, the government would have, through the BWA, would have provided hundreds of households with water tanks and pumps. But the reality that as a government, we cannot, even with the best of intention, cannot provide every single household. But the Prime Minister saw it fit to put measures in place so that persons can afford to buy their own pump. But there are people who can afford to buy their own tank and their own pump and set up their own system.
I remember that's 2 more minutes.
I'm wrapping up now. I had to put out there. Had to put it out there for the people in North. I mean, right now it's not only North, people in St. George. There are people who struggle with water issues all over this country. And then it's this time of the year. I mean, growing up in the country around March, April, you know, that's the time the pipe going off. Anybody from the country, you know, the pipe going off around April. It's like crop season, the pipe off. Is that no water? We grew up with that. We're not seeing that now. You understand? We're not seeing that now like before because of some of the work that has already gone in with some of the tanks that have been built out in Apesill, and some of the tanks that have been built out down in Boscobel, parts of St. Lucie. We're seeing now more resilience as it comes to water because it's important. This government saw the importance of water, not only to the small but to the economy. The country, when there's no water, the economy is already in trouble. It's the sector on which all other sectors in the economy relies. I know I have a little time.
That is so correct.
And I'm not going to push it. Just wanted to get those things out. And as I started, I want to finish by endorsing this budget, by giving it my full support. And Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the extra 2 or 3 minutes you gave me, and I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. Lucie.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I first of all rise and let me recognize my guests in the Speaker's Gallery, those three wonderful young people who have been with us since Budget Day and have come every day showing an interest in what is happening in their country. I'm certainly happy to welcome you here again today, and I trust.
Honourable, they're not from your constituency, are they? Are they from your constituency? I just asked, Honourable, just asking a simple question.
No, sir.
Are they from your constituency?
No, sir. They're all Barbadians. They have connections. One has connections to my
I understand. That's why I asked the question if they were from St. Lucie. I know the connection with St. Lucie and these pageants and stuff. Like, I'm very much aware of it. But I just thought that I hear the kudos being extended, which I understand. But the extra from you, I was just weary of. Continue, I remember.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we trust they enjoyed today's session as well. But what would have been disappointing for them, and I will get into that in a few minutes. Let me also express my thanks and my profound gratitude once again to the people of St. Lucie for so affording me this opportunity to represent them and speak on their behalf because of the confidence that they have reposed in me. I begin my contribution today, Mr. Speaker, with a reflection on where we were 6 years ago and where we are today. 6 years ago in May, we took the government of this country. And Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 17th of March, which was Sunday, I listened, as I usually do, to any program on radio where I hear people of Barbados expressing their concerns, etc., or calling programs, and so on. I listened on the 17th of March to a program on the Voice of Barbados, which was then hosted by one of the persons apparently vying for the leadership of the other side. What I heard, Mr. Speaker, in that entire program was synonymous with what we get from the other side and similar to what we got in here, what masqueraded yesterday, Mr. Speaker. As a matter of fact, I would not be unkind. I would not be unkind to the term reply to the budget, because during the course of time when I followed politics and during the course of time when I have been a member of this House, what we have had as responses to the budget far exceeded what we heard yesterday. We had on Sunday Mr. Wayward. Yesterday, we had what I perceive as a tornado. A tornado, synonymous with how that side operates. And the first letter in the acronym, D, they distort, they degrade, and they look to destroy. Mr. Speaker, sir, against this backdrop, I frame the few minutes I have to speak to the people of Barbados and to the people of St. Lucie in particular under this theme. Lest you forget and regret. Lest you forget and regret. I heard stories of how poor Barbados is, how everything is collapsing, how everything is expensive, how everything is out of reach. Nothing is working for Barbados and for Barbadians. That is what we heard, and we have been hearing over the past couple of months, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is what we have been hearing across this country. We are on the brink of a precipice. I heard a question in the call-in program on Sunday asking where all the money gone. Honourable member for St. James South, I see you look back. And you know who asked that question. This took me back, Mr. Speaker, to 2007. It took me back to 2007 when such questions were asked, when Barbados' economy was floating, was fine. But in order to win a government, Mr. Speaker, these kind of questions, and you created that doubt and that fear in the people of Barbados' mind just to be able to win a government. Power hungry is the word my colleague described it with, Mr. Speaker. I heard about debt, how high the debt galloping out of control, all these things. Nothing is working in Barbados according to them. Nothing, Mr. Speaker. Could not connect with the budget. They could not, have not connected to this day to the budget. But I remember in the good book, it says, wisdom is too high for a fool. I ain't calling nobody no fool. Wisdom is too high. Too high. Mr. Speaker, sir, they would want us to forget when there were no buses. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition forgets when he had to be tiptoeing coming down Oystins, stepping, didn't know what kind of water he was stepping in. When we had feces running on the streets. They would want us to forget, Mr. Speaker, when not one house was built, when public servants, Mr. Speaker, did not get one salary increase or got just one salary increase in 10 years. So lest we forget, because in 6 short years, according to them, Barbados out of control. And everything is wrong and everything is bad in Barbados. We face a pandemic. We went through a pandemic, Mr. Speaker. And this caring administration gave care packages to the most vulnerable all across this country. And now you have the great pretender caring about workers, and I'm going to get into that. I'm going to deal with that workers' part, Mr. Speaker. Because Barbadians must not be fooled. And they believe the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, who has betrayed the trust of the people of Christchurch South, who he couldn't win nowhere else. Not just win nowhere. He's never won a seat anywhere under the party he now leads. But betrayed the trust of the people of Christchurch South, who elected him based on the programs of this Barbados that was put forward to them by the Barbados Labour Party. And it is his right, if he so desires, if he so feels, that he no longer wants to remain in the bosom of this party, that is all right. But do not give people the impression that he did not have a voice in this party. He had a voice, but he was never present at parliamentary group meetings. He was never present at retreats that we had. Never present. He wasn't even present in Christchurch South. And all of a sudden, Mr. Speaker, and I have a right, Mr. Speaker, and I will defend, not in every institution and organization, not everything is 100% for anybody. But if you want everything 100%, then you're going to be in heaven. Even in heaven, the Lord had to cast down Satan. So not everything is right or goes the way you want it. But Mr. Speaker, sir, when you are a team player, you can share your views, but at the end of the day, you work, Mr. Speaker, for the common good of your people and the organization that you represent. So we have a situation where we are made to believe that in this country today, nothing is working. Nothing good is happening. Nothing, Mr. Speaker. The workers are being unfaired, and we are doing nothing on their behalf. Mr. Speaker, sir, we talk and we heard talk about you're working on the behalf, you're on the behalf of the workers, the ordinary man. Mr. Speaker, I see yesterday there was a comment made with respect to a breakfast program
and talking about the honorable member talking about breakfast and what happening and so on, being critical. And somebody posted, Mr. Speaker, I don't know who they were referring to, but it is interesting that this comment came in the midst of the speech and right after a comment was made in that regard, with regards to breakfast by the honorable member. And this person alluded to a situation where sponsorship was given to a certain camp. And people recognize, Mr. Speaker, the camp directors recognized that there were children coming to the camp without breakfast. And they asked the honorable member to assist in that regard for these couple of children, Mr. Speaker. And it was turned down. But you know what? The honorable member then took all the credit you had that you could get for the success of the camp. And come in here posing as though he believes he is Jesus. Pretending, I say he is the great pretender, Mr. Speaker. He's posing on behalf of workers and the workers of this country that he's the savior and that this government is the worst thing since sliced bread with respect to the workers of this country.
Your honourable member has 5 more minutes.
Lord, man. All right, Mr. Speaker, I will work with it with the 5 minutes. You can say a lot in 5 minutes. Mr. Speaker, sir, he went to town on the National Housing Corporation, and I know the honorable member for St. George South, when he gets the opportunity, will speak to all the allegations, etc., that he has made. But he didn't talk because he went back, looking at every year under this administration with what was happening, what was done and what was not done, etc. But he didn't talk, and that is why the people of Barbados got rid of that administration. He didn't talk about when the 2.46 million was being transferred from the Ministry of Finance to that agency, Mr. Speaker, for a number of years, for a number of months, for 18 months, without parliamentary approval. He talking about infelicities, talk about that. That is why the people of Barbados got rid of that administration. And this administration is now doing its best to bring housing solutions. I don't care with all the theatrics, Mr. Speaker, that were displayed with respect to what is happening, or with respect, in order perhaps embellishing the what he's saying for it to go into the hearts of people. Because you see, Mr. Speaker, how that side operates is that they come and they throw things out there, Mr. Speaker, for Barbadians to latch on to and believe it's true. I have a responsibility, Mr. Speaker, as a member of Parliament. And I will always say, all of us on this side, Mr. Speaker, we have a voice. We speak I can say, Mr. Speaker, in every parliamentary meeting, when there are major decisions to be made, our leader goes one by one, by one, by one, by one. I have been present, Mr. Speaker, when, as they say, some of us lock horns with the political leader too, and you come in here to give people the impression, Mr. Speaker, about people can't talk. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, quickly before I close up, I am grateful for the work by the Ministry of Agriculture at Mount Poyer. He don't know where Mount Poyer is. I would invite him to come to Mount Poyer with Karim and show him where it is and show him what is happening at Mount Poyer. Where this administration, Mr. Speaker, we have a water problem and we give every farmer a water tank to help them, Mr. Speaker, with the issue of water because of the dry season. This administration has done that. And Mount Poyer continues to be a success. In addition, we're also fixing the car roads that the people will be able to get to their land and to be able to move their produce.
Your Honourable needs to wind up.
But on that note, Mr. Speaker, in saying that, I want to let the people know the car roads are being fixed to help the owners of the lots move their produce, not the larcenists. Not the larcenists. As I speak on the behalf of the people of St. Lucie, they are grateful, Mr. Speaker. They are grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the measures the Prime Minister has put in place to assist those, Mr. Speaker, you heard, and I concur, he probably was reading my speech. The Honourable Member for St. Andrew. You heard, Mr. Speaker, with the personal days.
Honourable, you need to wind up.
I'm winding down, Mr. Speaker, I'm winding down. The wave on the VAT tanks. This budget has been a progressive one, to push this country forward, to help the people of Barbados, to help the people who live in my constituency from Crab Hill to Pie Corner to Josie Hill, to Bentons, Mr. Speaker, to Allendale. This budget that was given here is to help them. And I pledge my full support to this budget. I give my full support to it, Mr. Speaker. And I will continue to work with the government on the behalf of the people of St. Lucie, that we will move forward, Mr. Speaker. As the only, as the only female parish, let me say that, at the top of the map, Mr. Speaker, a country led by a woman.
All I remember, is a term called stopping.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to stop now. I am obliged to you, Mr. Speaker, but I support this budget 100%.
All I remember is the Michael Northwest.
Sir, I rise on behalf of the good people of St. Michael Northwest, who I shall not betray by crossing the floor of Parliament, who I shall not betray, sir, in any way that will signify that I am only thinking about self and not the good people who I humbly serve. Sir, I remain loyal to the Barbados Labour Party. Blood is thicker than water, and I was birthed within a Barbados Labour Party family. Sir, I will remain and retire as a member of the Barbados Labour Party. I rise, sir, to give my support and to endorse the budgetary proposal and financial statement 2024, which was delivered by my Honourable Prime Minister on the 18th of March, 2024. Sir, it hurts my heart that the Honourable Member of Christchurch South has decided to act as Jesus and to carry the cross for the Democratic Labour Party. Why on God's earth the leader of the opposition think that he can resurrect the dead? After the Democratic Labour Party administration was responsible for the 23 downgrades that led to them having to print money. Why on God's earth the leader of the opposition think that he can resurrect the dead after the last Democratic Labour Party administration was responsible for increasing the national debt from 2.5 billion to 18.1 billion between 2008 and 2018. Sir, why on God's earth the leader of the opposition think that he can resurrect the dead after the Democratic Labour Party that he so proudly lead was responsible for 68 cents from every dollar going towards the 178.9% of GDP. Sir, I want the leader of the opposition, who is so proud to be the leader of the Democratic Labour Party, but apparently he is not proud to represent the good people of Christchurch South, who put him there. At no point in time, he did not mention his constituents or thank them during his 4 hours plus presentation. I want the Honourable Member to tell the people of Barbados, who brought down the GDP from 178.9% to 114.6%. Who did? The Barbados Labour Party did. At no point did the opposition leader defended the lost decade under the Democratic Labour Party during his reply to the budget. You should not be a part of a political party that you cannot defend. Sir, so when the political leader of the Democratic Labour Party want to attack this government on spending, he should look back at what his political party did to the taxpayers of this country. So he should check himself before he come out here attacking this government that helped feed him and made him who he is today. Sir, the Democratic Labour Party forgot that them sent home people in 2013, shortly after the 2013 general election. And you know, a late politician once said that Bajans have short memory. And when the Barbados Labour Party government created the Ash Workers program, it was only supposed to be a 3-month program. And what the Prime Minister of Barbados did, she allowed the same Ash workers to work and provide for themselves and their families for 2 whole years. And not only that, this government created opportunities through the Gateway program for the same Ash workers to embrace and to learn the skill and to become more marketable. Some of the same ASH workers from my constituency benefited from this Gateway Program project. And I want the leader of the opposition to name one such program that the Democratic Labour Party administration had implemented during the 10 last years. Sir, I can proudly name 5 programs and counting under the Barbados Labour Party government. We had the ASH Workers Program, the 360-degree program, still active. The Community Elder Care Program, still active. The Peace Program, still active. The Gateway Program, still active. And the Democratic Labour Party forgot that the taxpayers of this country got one salary increase in 10 years under the Barbados Labour Party government, sir. We gave the good people of Barbados 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 salary increases within 6 years, Mr. Speaker, sir. 3. Sir, I will caution the leader of the opposition. He should be careful about who is leading him behind the scenes, because the Barbados Labour Party has 1 leader and the Democratic Labour Party has 2 who are battling for leadership, and more to come. Get your house in order, sir, before you come attacking the Barbados Labour Party government, who is more focused on governing this country and doing better for the people of Barbados. Would you believe, sir, that after the high level of corruption under the opposition leader, previous government, would you believe that there are aspiring political opportunists who call themselves business executives, who, according to the words of the leader of the opposition, constitute the finest minds Barbados has to offer? That statement is much to offer, sir. It speaks to the divide which exists within this country and why educational reform is important. Sir, every child shall aspire to reach high office, no matter the school he or she attains. A man who has presented that he holds an MBA in finance from the University of Liverpool, and no such program is offered. Mr. Speaker, sir, I did my research, sir, and I made contacts with Student Affairs Department at the University of Liverpool. Sir, listen, and I have the documents that I could share. Make it a document of the House, sir. I can make them a document of the House. And I think it is very misleading on the leader of the opposition to be doing such things, especially a man that holds such high integrity. Sir, how can the leader of the opposition be embracing political opportunists who like to run around my constituency, jumping up and down like if he's on a trampoline, looking for political attention? Who does that, Mr. Speaker, sir? Who does that? Sir, would you believe that this same individual who the leader of the opposition has under his wing, takes advantage of small businessmen and contractors in this country, Mr. Speaker, sir. Would you believe that? Yeah. A businessman who likes to act like a wolf in sheep clothing, pretending to care about poor people and people, but on the other hand, is taking advantage of small businessmen and contractors who are trying to earn an honest living, Mr. Speaker, sir. Sir, and when I was on my way here, sir, this morning, these documents here fell off the back of a hamburger truck. And they stopped, and they got out. I took them up, sir, and it was very interesting, sir. And, sir, this is an invoice dated the 5th of April, 2022, addressed to a certain general manager at a hamburger place. And this invoice, sir, is in the sum of 14,140 Barbados dollars, Mr. Speaker, sir. And it's so unfortunate, sir, that when contractors go out there and got to put in the work and then got to be running down certain businessmen to get the money, to feed the families, and to pay the bills, and to pay the workers, you'll be getting a runaround from these same aspiring political opportunists, taking advantage of poor people who trying to earn a living just like him, sir. But what I want to say to all the other contractors who the same businessman owe, I would like them to come to me and let me represent them free of cost. Unlike some people that turn the back on me. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I want the opposition to know that I will remain focused when it comes to representing the good people of St. Michael Northwest. So when they're walking about looking for issues, I am on top of every issue that exists in my constituency. Every single one. And I will never turn my back on the good people of St. Michael Northwest. Never. I know sometimes it may be challenging, sir, to get certain things done because of the limited resources and manpower in some departments. When you have the treatment department, sir, servicing a whole island, sometimes it could be very difficult to get the team to come in to do work. The next challenge is with drainage, limited resources again, trying to get the drainage department to come and clean and clear some water courses because of limited resources when the equipment
Your Honourable Member has 4 more minutes.
Isn't broken down, sir. But I want the good people to know that I am on top of these issues and I'm fighting to have these issues addressed and rectified. Sir, like I said from out front, I support these estimates, right? And I know that these estimates will benefit the good people who I serve in St. Michael Northwest. I started the farming program in Deacons, and I am presently working with the Ministry of Agriculture in trying to have access to the additional 5 acres that was approved for me to expand the agriculture program in Deacons. I'm also working, sir, on having the building blocks project executed for the good people in Golden Acre, sir. So these are things that I am optimistic about during the next financial year, sir. And I'm also confident that the amount of assistance that was given to the good people of St. Michael Northwest in terms of building houses through urban, I can assure the good people of St. Michael Northwest that more houses will be built during the next financial year. So these are the things that this government are doing for the good people of St. Michael Northwest, sir. And one of the other things that I am presently working on, sir, and I want to thank the Prime Minister, the honorable member for St. Michael Northeast, sir, for having the Deacons Resource Center transferred to the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment. And I am presently working now, or should I say I'm in the process of drafting a letter, sir, to the Prime Minister, requesting to have the CM Deacons Development Center in the farm renamed after the late Mark Williams, sir. So these are things that I am very passionate about, sir, when it comes to my constituents and my constituency, sir. So I don't mind all the hollow balloon that some political opportunists like to just run about the place and talk and want to look pretty, for the fanfare. I ain't about that, sir. And I don't run to social media every minute, looking for attention. Sir, I have done so much for that constituency, sir. And everything that I do, sir, I don't run to the nation or run to the social media and take pictures and post it on social media. That's not my style, sir.
I remember you. Can you wind up, please?
Sir, like I said, I fully support these estimates, sir, and I oblige to you, sir.
The sitting is resumed. Honourable Member for St. Philip North.
Thank you.
Oh, beg your pardon. Honourable Member for St. James North.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise today to support the budgetary proposals and financial statements which have been laid in this Parliament by the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. At the outset, I wish to, of course, acknowledge my honour and privilege for now the 12th year of my parliamentary representation of the people of St. James North. And I'll speak to what this government has been doing within that constituency during my presentation. First, wish to speak towards the comprehensive nature of the tax rebates and credits for projects aligned to national development which were delivered by the Honourable Prime Minister, especially in the areas of infrastructure, in terms of elderly care facilities, in terms of agriculture, technology, digitalization, cultural industries, water, storage, preservation, energy storage, the boosting of climate resilience, and the environment, all within these budgetary proposals. Also wish to associate myself with the stated intention to readjust the minimum wage for workers in this country, the benefits proposed to be given to teachers, nurses, policemen, and real and credible benefits, Deputy Speaker, not like the ones promised to the teachers, police, and nurses in the 2008 manifesto and on the platform of the Democratic Labour Party, that they would give them tax-free allowances, duty-free allowances for vehicles, a promise that was not realized in the 10 years, 3 months of the last decade. So there's something for everyone in this budget, Deputy Speaker. I first wish to address, for a while, business facilitation and investment proposals in the budget, then speak on issues relating to my constituency, and then, of course, I could not sit down, Deputy Speaker, unless I speak towards the issue of disabilities and the benefits in this presentation for people with disabilities. We have recognized, and ease of doing business has always been a difficulty in Barbados. Before COVID, we brought down Barbados from being one of the most difficult countries to do business in the world in, brought it down to number 119, sir, from 156. But then, of course, COVID came along. And since then, clearly, one of the prime aims of this government is to try and make Barbados a better place to do business. So we have proposed the creation of an intellectual property agency as a dedicated division to support the registration of patents and trademarks in accordance with various international conventions relating to intellectual property. This is key, sir, because that office, as it is right now within CAIPO, is problematic. I know that reforms are being carried out, proposals by a prime accounting company, but it is still problematic. It is still difficult to do business, especially within the area of intellectual property. They take too long in terms of applications, and therefore the proposal to intervene with the creation of a special dedicated agency is certainly noble, sir. The provision of a committee headed by the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Housing to try to get a handle of the delays in property transactions, why it takes so long for property transfers, is probably long overdue. And some of the reasons, as the Honourable Prime Minister said, have to do with the state as well. And therefore, I certainly look forward to attending the sessions on this issue and making an input. And then, of course, the proposed creation of the entity called Business Barbados is key. The facilitation of business and ease of doing business, all spoken to in here, as well as the revamping and repurposing of CAIPO with the launch of an expanded and upgraded digital registry during this financial year. Because growth and investment has to be led, yes, by the private sector. It's never led by any government. And these are some of the proposals that will ease such. The Honourable, I sat in amazement and listened to over 4.5 hours of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition yesterday, and quite honestly, I was wondering if he's speaking about the same country that we're living in. This abject poverty and hardship. But then I recall, Ma'am, that he made that same statement and those same propositions and accusations against the last government, the government of the last decade, especially at a speech in Top Rock in 2017, I think it might have been December, at which I spoke too. At which I spoke these exact same accusations. And I wondered to myself if the Honourable member for Christchurch South could honestly come in this Parliament and tell this Parliament and the people of Barbados through this Parliament if there has ever been a time, in his opinion, that this country under DLP administration did not have a large amount of people suffering under abject poverty and hardship. If he could honestly come and say so the next time he speaks and identify that period, I will be very happy. Because in my view, he cannot give any period, not after that speech that he made at Top Rock, when, of course, we were at the location where sewerage was swimming in the sea, and the Dems had absolutely no solution to deal with it, not only in the sea, but in the streets too. And the Dems had no solution to deal with it. And under the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, within 2-3 months, that storage was no longer the case after we came into office. But that is the nature of politics. You know, and this is one of the reasons why people of Barbados, quite honestly, do not have respect for a lot of politicians, because you're not true to yourselves and you have no basic philosophy and standing and principle on issues. In terms of St. James North, Deputy Speaker, this is the first time in my, as I said, this is my 12th year now of parliamentary representation, that I can stand here and sincerely thank a Minister of Public Works and that ministry for the work that is being done in my constituency. Within the last 3 months, 10 roads have been done, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker. And within the last 14 months, 14 roads have been repaired, or at least the repairs started. Rotunda needs to be finished. But if someone on Christmas Day had told me, Edmund, by mid-March, 10 roads would have been repaired in your constituency, 10 more roads, or at least started the repairs and the vast majority completed, I would have asked them if they need a head examining. More roads have been repaired in St. James North in the last 3 months than in the whole entire history of Barbados. And I've advocated for this to be done since I was nominated candidate for this party, and it's being delivered. It is true that the job is not complete, because there's still some roads in the St. Peter part of my constituency to be repaired. And the irony, as the Honourable Member for St. Peter and I joke about, is that I got 2 roads apparently repaired in the St. Peter part of my constituency, that the feeling was that they were in the constituency of St. Peter, so I probably benefited 2 additional roads. That is the honest truth, but it's well deserved. But now there's still, most of the roads in the St. Peter part of my constituency, except those 2, are still need to be repaired. I think Lower Bakers is going to be repaired under the direction of the Honourable Prime Minister last week, and repairs should start to that this week, and that's much needed. So road repairs no longer an issue now in St. James North, except for the St. Peter part, which I trust will be done within this upcoming financial year. New fish market, Spink and Span, Western, being constructed, due to finish around the end of this year, cost $3 million. The old fire station, which the Dems ignobly closed down in May 2017, without even telling me as parliamentary representative or the people who live in Western. Some refurbishment about to start there for that to be retrofitted to house a department or station of the coastal unit. Drainage, the hope and promise and expectation that when the new civic center is constructed above Trench, that part of that construction and mandate will be to deal with the problem of flooding in Trench, which all the rain has to do is set up. The sky has to set up and Trench flood out. But the Prime Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, has addressed that too with her 20% rebate on access on assessed land tax for residential purposes that suffer from perennial flooding from rainfall and associated damage, provided that the homeowners have valid home insurance policies in place with flood insurance coverage. And this will be for the direct benefit of the owners of property in Trents. They certainly, Madam Deputy Speaker, have to insure their houses, which we have been urging them to do. Insure your house. We all know that property insurance has now increased. I got a bill for a property that a company of mine owns, and it's a 20% increase. But I appeal to Barbadians, don't let that deter you from insuring your property. And the people of Trents and other parts of St. James North which flood, I'm appealing to you to ensure that your property insurance is in place, covered with flood damage, and you will get a 20% rebate on your assessed land tax for so doing, because Trents clearly has to come within the ambit of one of the areas in Barbados where there's perennial flooding from rainfall. The issue, Madam Deputy Speaker, of the coastal infrastructural projects, which the Honourable Prime Minister announced will be implemented as a consequence of her signing the $50 million loan with the IADB in Dominican Republic 2 weeks ago. The area of Roadview and Mullins directly to benefit from that, because yes, beach erosion there as a result of climate change is a serious problem. And part of these monies, this 50 million, will go towards buttressing the coastal protection and the houses along in that area, which is a serious problem right now. Therefore, that proposal to urgently stabilize the shoreline and to enhance it in St. James North is key. There is also what remains from St. James North, of course, and we addressed this in the estimates, the issue of the sports facility, lack of a sports facility on the coast in St. James North, and I trust that an imminent location can be found for such by the Ministry of Sports. The issue, Madam Deputy Speaker, of disabilities and the benefits there have caused people who traditionally are not supportive of the Barbados Labour Party to tell me yesterday morning that this Prime Minister is the best Prime Minister Barbados has had for persons with disabilities.
Member, please be reminded you've got 4 minutes to conclude.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I spent the first 2 hours of my morning yesterday taking phone calls, responding to WhatsApps from people with disabilities all over Barbados who were extremely happy with the proposals that from October the 1st, because time has to be given to put in place, there will be categories of persons with disabilities will be given 100% non-contributory old age pension if you're an adult, 50% if you are a minor. And the Prime Minister said yesterday that she tonight will widen the categories which she named in her presentation 2 days ago, from the cerebral palsy, advanced multiple sclerosis, and autism. Because as she, and it's incredible, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, his very first point yesterday, very first, so he thought he had a political win, was to read a letter from a caregiver of someone with Down syndrome, saying that, well, Down syndrome should have been included. The Honourable Prime Minister was able to intervene on a point of elucidation and said, look, the Honourable Member for St. James North has already spoken to me about that omission and other omissions, and I will make the adjustment in my wrap-up. So you're facing, that is the opposition facing a mammoth first innings total by the other side of 500 plus. And first over, bowl, out. No point, dealt with. And the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would understand that because he was a cricketer of some sorts in the past. But, you know, Leviticus 19:14 says, don't curse the deaf. Don't put a stumbling block in front of the blind. Fear your God. That's something that always people who seek to serve the most vulnerable must be mindful of. And the National Insurance Act has not been changed for persons with disabilities and their benefits since its inception in 1967. We have called, people with disabilities, their stakeholders, have called on these changes which were announced 2 days ago for a very long time.
Honourable Member, please make your wrap-up.
And we look forward to these being implemented. Of course, I would urge, and I know that the Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Finance, Ministry of People Empowerment will speak with the stakeholders in the disabilities to make sure that the implementation of this is properly done. Just one more point, Madam Deputy Speaker. The issue of 2 new buses for the National Disabilities Unit is obviously key too, because accessibility and transport for persons with disabilities has been a problem for too long. People with disabilities having to pay $200 in many cases to go to their medical service providers or the QEH hospital and back. And this will help in that sense. And the Honourable Prime Minister also reminded that public service vehicles which have wheelchair adaptability for the purposes of providing public transport for such persons are imported free of customs duty and excise duty and VAT. So as the head of the PSV sector told me 2 weeks ago, they've received their supplementary from the government of Barbados to buy more public transport vehicles, and they are keen to also purchase some of those vehicles with these kind of tax exemptions that they have been given. The issue of the credit tax, 75% tax credit for provision of educational and life skill facilities for persons with special needs, and the greater intervention in terms of diagnostic testing and screening for the children at both public and private schools to enhance special needs education, and the teachers' assistive technologies and
Honourable Member, I hate to
given.
interrupt you,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
we do have limited time.
Okay, ma'am.
And I'd like you please to make your concluding statement.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are all benefits for persons with disabilities. So I fully support these budgetary proposals and call on all Barbadians, right-thinking Barbadians, to let's put our hands on the block, the Barbados block, and to move to make Barbados a better place for all of us.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. Philip North.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and good morning to all in the chamber. I must admit this morning, well, maybe from last night after the speech of the Honourable Member for the opposition, my mind has been muddled, a little confused. Obviously, questions are in my head, and I'm trying my best and will depend on the good Lord above to guide me in the direction I am going with this intervention today. I want to say, first off, that I really have no issues with the budget presented by the Honourable Prime Minister, but like I usually do, I just want to offer some suggestions, perhaps, and basically represent those mostly in my constituency of St. Philip North, some outside of my constituency. I want to offer congratulations or kudos to the Ministry of Health and Wellness in the annual budget, where I heard day before yesterday that 250 members of staff will be added to the complement over the next 3 years. This is something I have been praying for in my short stint at the Ministry of Health and Queen Elizabeth Hospital. This was one of the main things that came out of my walking around the hospital, the paucity of staff within the hospital. And this led to so many different things. This led to burnout of the staff members. This led to angst among the patients. I mean, this is not the only issue, as the Honourable member for St. Michael North alluded to earlier when I listened yesterday. But this will certainly go a long way. What I would like to offer now is some small advice to the Ministry of Health and those who run it, is to allow the staff members to have a say, more of a say in what goes on within the walls of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And I point out firstly, when I got there and I visited the new A&E, this is still expanding. As a doctor, I saw some of the issues we have with it, and many of the staff in there also saw some of the issues we have with it. But to my surprise, a lot of them were not even included in the design of the new A&E, even though there have to be some adjustments. When the heads of department in the A&E would have surveyed it and realized that it's really not fit for purpose sometimes. So I'm begging that the staff be included, even with the hiring of the COO. Yes, I asked the question in the CEO, the new CEO, and I was given an answer, but in terms of how people are interviewed and so on, the labor, and when you're working with somebody senior, you often have a voice. That is now the new thinking in hiring. And we have very professional, some of them have acted in that position, members of staff of the hospital, the directors, that are well equipped to lend something. In the end, they still have to help. So these are some of the things that I think would add to the morale. Really and truly, the hospital, the morale is probably at an all-time low. And some of these things, although they may seem small, are very, very important. I was pleased to hear about the linear accelerator come in. I really look forward to it. I really hope that by the end of the year that we can boast of having a linear accelerator. The delay was, in my mind, unnecessary. I am aware of the linear accelerator that we're trying to access, and I pray to God it's the same one. And I also am aware that but the other jurisdictions, other islands have been calling, ready and waiting. This is something that would pay for itself in very short order. So I'm glad that's coming. I'm glad about the mammogram, although, in my opinion, a mammogram is for primary setting mostly. I understand the biopsies, but we've moved forward from that a long way if you speak to the people at the hospital. But we need a mammogram in the primary care setting. We really do. Mammogram is mostly primary to secondary care. We need a mammogram in the primary care setting. Yes, the hospital, the Ministry of Health contributes to entities like Barbados Cancer Society. They have a mammogram at minimal cost to some, but some members of the population really cannot afford, even though it's a minimal cost of maybe $90. Some of them really can't. And I can have examples of people that really, I had a patient that died in the height of COVID that just could not afford a mammogram. She didn't tell me, if not, I would have paid for it myself. But having a mammogram in the public setting, the primary care setting, would be probably more useful than in the hospital setting. And this is very segue to the importance of primary care. Yes, I'm hearing about the build-out and the repairs and what's not for the polyclinics, the 9 polyclinics we have. Truth and in fact, if we do not address the primary care, we are losing the battle against NCDs. Yes, the hospital needs money, but the primary care setting really, really, really needs to be supported in terms of staff, in terms of training, in terms of getting the outreach. The nurses need to be really back on the ground in full force. I think some are back now, but in full force. There are elderly people out there that really cannot get to the polyclinic. There are young people out there that think they're well and don't want to come to the polyclinic. So the onus is on the Ministry of Health to actually reach those people that need care, that need educating. And we as a parliament in our branch meetings and so on can help with that in terms of bringing people to educate the members of the public. But primary care setting, we cannot make a dent if we cannot control hypertension. That is not a hospital issue most times. If we cannot control diabetes, if we cannot screen for certain cancers in the primary care setting, if we don't have the staff for the primary care setting, even things like dental care need to be buttressed a little more. We need to start offering more than, I'm missing the word, but preventative care beyond children. Let's be honest, the dental care, the cost of dental care is extremely high on the outside for most dentists, and adults really cannot afford it sometimes to go in the private service. So beyond extractions for adults, we need to be in the business of caring for teeth and saving teeth. So it's my hope and my dream, perhaps that's a better word, to see the build-up of the dental clinics within the primary care setting. We have an ambitious goal by 2030 to decrease the NCD. It's a tall order, but I believe we can make some progress. We probably won't get there fully, but we can make some progress into putting a dent, at least to access the numbers that we have on the ground of people with plagued by the various NCDs, including cancer. Cancer seems to be a big one. Right now, I have probably 2 patients in my office that I probably won't see in January next year. And these are people that we need to help out, that don't know that they're ill, that we need to get to within the primary care setting. Within the hospital, the elderly for care, as we call them, is still a problem. It seems to be getting bigger of a problem. And that the issue is we have people who are well-to-do that just refuse to come for their relatives. In my time when I was there, we used to put the well elderly person on a bus or ambulance and take them back home. And that was it. Truth be told, I think some form of legislation has to be put in place where, and it's probably better with an example. I had an elderly, I hope he's home now, 90-something, full brain, sharp as a tack, dropped off at the hospital. He was well, not a relative, and these are well-to-do people. It was his house, his children are in the house and refused to take him back. In my day, we would put him in a bus, I saw over. In my time, put him in an ambulance and take him home where he belongs. This is not happening. So I'm hoping to see legislation enacted that will have some sort of control in these elderly people being dropped off at the hospital for care. After they're well, they need to go back home or find a more suitable facility. And as I always say, don't always blame families for this. Some people have no choice but to use public facilities for housing the elderly. And I'm well aware that we give subventions to nursing homes. And I'm happy if I think something was said that there will be increase across the board so that we can treat our elderly better than they are now. I am glad in some ways about the new geriatric hospital in terms of building out of a new geriatric hospital. The number, I think, is being built in phases because we will need more than 400 odd beds. In the next 10 years, we will need more than that. And this is one of the things that we need to look at carefully. The thing is, I don't know, if I had a choice, this is me, Sonia Brown, speaking, if I had a choice, knowing the ills within the hospital setting, within the issues within the hospital, the infrastructural, pipes bursting, sewage pipes bursting, but we can't reach them because the wards are full. So in order to fix some of the issues, we have to empty a ward, which is darn near impossible, to fix the issues. In my view, we need a new public hospital, probably a little more urgently than the elderly. My vision would have been to build a new hospital, a new public general hospital, renovate the old hospital, the one that was birthed in 1964, renovate that for the elderly. The elderly do not need as much care as the general hospital. They don't need theaters. They don't need labs in-house particularly. They won't need the office space. They won't need a lot. So if I had to say, if I had to be president for a day, and I say president on purpose, this is one of the things I would really look into. The hospital really, really needs help. Really needs help. And we cannot get a lot further in the building as it is. I move on from that, and I heard somebody saying repetition, politics is repetition, and I will repeat myself again today. And this, I was accused of bringing my personal business to Parliament, but it was more than my personal business. It had to do with the residents that live around me and beyond with respect to this land tax issue. I think it is grossly unfair. For those of us who have to rake up that money, it is grossly unfair, and I repeat that again, repetition. It needs to be looked into. I dare say it needs a forensic audit. There is information out there, whether true or false. It doesn't have to be true, but it needs to be looked into. I am not one who will purport to doing away with the land tax. I believe taxes are there for a reason. We all know that taxes are there for a reason. But to ask members of the public to pay these exorbitant fees if you have over 2, and some are less than 2 acres. So what would my tax be if I had 1.999 acres? These are the things we need to look into that are hurting the members of the public. Those are agricultural land, that's no incentive at all to do anything on it. Or maybe that's the incentive to do more on it, that you could pay the land tax, which leaves no profit for you. But I am begging, I'm not on bending knees because the microphone can't reach down there, but I am begging somebody with good senses to look into it. I will pay it. The danger with paying the land tax, I will pay some of it, is that you can't owe the government. The government can't owe you, but you wait with bated breath to get back your money from the government. We all know this with taxes. We all know this with land tax. So I will see for the next 5 years, oh, you have a credit, and it will never be, I will still be asked to pay. So this is the dangers of it. I will be asked to pay interest rates on land tax if I'm late, but if the government owes me, no interest will be placed on that. And these are the things that we really need to look into. I am sorry that if I made some people uncomfortable. I was told lately that I made some members in here uncomfortable. I apologize for that. But these are things that affect my constituents. Or maybe I don't apologize for it. Let's leave it there.
Honourable member, you've got 5 minutes.
I have
5 minutes, ma'am.
5 minutes already. I want to bring up the issues of, let me start on a couple things. Within the workers that we all were proud of giving jobs to, I would like somebody to relook, and they have brought this up with the honourable member responsible for that ministry, and I'm doing it gently. I'm not quarreling. With respect to the NCC, I don't know what you call them nowadays, the people that work on the outside, their work week on, week off, which I think is hard. Week on, week off does not lend for anybody else to get a part-time job. So maybe we can think about that. You really can do a week on in any other job if you want to supplement your income. The other thing that vexes me a little bit, and I heard the logic behind it, is the being hired as self-employed where people are expected to pay the NIS. The truth is, if I had a choice between buying food and paying NIS, if I have all the money in my hand, I would choose to buy food. And sometimes people have to be guided. If you don't see it coming out of your salary, you don't really feel it. They need a little help. And then some people at these NISS, whatever the name is now, tell them straight, you cannot register as a self-employed person, and which means vacations are issued. I will admit it, I have written sick leave papers so that people can get a little rest, because if they go on sick leave, they won't get any money because they haven't been paying. The other issue I am seeing, 2 people came to me this week that applied for jobs in the hotel, both of them in their 50s. And they were told at the interview process, and the member for St. George North, hopefully will look into this. The lady was told that she's menopausal and they don't hire menopausal people. That's one. The other one, he was a chef, and they told him point blank they're not hiring anybody of his age. We have increased the pension age. We can't expect people to not work. So these are things the labor unions need to look into most urgently, because pension age have increased. Once you're aware of, make sure the people contact whoever. But these are the things, the roads, we need to get back into looking into these private roads that are all over St. Philip, at least in Philip North. They're private on paper, but they're really not private in practice. Everybody goes through the roads, we can't get them fixed, they're full of holes, people's cars are being destroyed. I want that looked at again. I'm looking to see what can be left out. I want that looked at again. People are crying out to me. Kaipo, I brought this up in the estimates last year, with those who are asked to file annual returns, small companies that have a revenue of less than $1 million. I have asked the DLP, give us the privilege of costing $10 a day for late filings. Some people were not aware that they were supposed to file. Our administration put a cap of that of $3,000 per year. I am aware of small businesses who were 8 years in filing. So their bills are up to like $24,000 more than that. I'm asking, and you can apply for a waiver, but the issue is nobody answers the phone. Nobody answers the phone, so applying for you give them all the information that you need, but nobody answers the phone, and small businesses will be hurting. So I'm asking for that to be looked into, or waiver proposed, or something to that effect. These are the things I can bring up quickly. The other things would be Ministry of Housing, between them and rural, to help with these houses that were damaged since hurricane. All of them, some of them are still there. Pit toilets are still there, and we pay pit toilets are there to be built. And we are paying the sewage tax, that the garbage and sewage tax. My constituency reaps no benefit. I'm hearing the Peter pay for Paul's story, but sees no benefit from the sewage tax. That can be righted if these pit toilets can be put in, if people can be assisted with digging wells, which we have applied as a constituency, in my constituency office, for several wells to be dug. We need to get something out of what we pay. I understand the garbage. I'm wrapping up now, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful for your ear. All of my other issues can come up at another time. Thank you very much.
Honourable member for St. Peter. Honourable member for St. Peter, you are acknowledged.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Unlike the newly minted leader of the opposition, I try to, to demonstrate the manners that were instilled in me while I was growing up. And so I would not want to begin to say anything in your house without your permission. Permit me first to thank those who have sent me here to represent them, to speak on their behalf, the people of St. Peter. I speak in their name. I speak with their permission. They have been accustomed to good representation in this place and in other places, and I recognize the responsibility that lies on my shoulders, even as I stand to represent them. But I do it with honor, and I do it recognizing that I bring to this place the substance of what they want expressed. Now, we saw or were treated to what in my mind was some of the worst theater in my recent memory. I mean, I've been to many plays at UE. I attended Laugh It Off this year. And you get good theater. Sometimes you get theater that is so-so, poco. But last night for 5 hours, we were treated to bad theater. If I'd paid Madam Deputy Speaker, I would have demanded my money back. It was awful. It was really awful. And you know that I sit in my seat most of the time unless I have to go to the washroom. I became very upset when the members of the Democratic Labour Party walked out. I thought it was disrespectful. But Madam Deputy Speaker, there came a point in time when I have done so many conciliations, and I can sit for a whole day just hearing the back and forth. But last night, I was forced to agree with those Democratic Labour Party members who walked out. And I do not feel proud saying that, but I really was forced to. We were treated to allegations. We were treated to what in St. Peter we call dropping remarks. Nastiness is not parliamentary. And I am hoping that one of my colleagues can give me a substitute word for it. But that is the word in my head. I'm not going to repeat it. It is the word in my head. I think we have sunk to a low, and I'm not going to say a new low, only because I am not, while very new, relatively new to Parliament, sitting in Parliament, I've been following parliamentary debates for quite some time. And I know that we've had low points in Parliament before. And human beings sometimes tend to think that what they are experiencing is either the best or the worst ever. I'm not that naive. But we have reached a recent low. We've come to a point where an honourable member can say, well, I have the right to be wrong, but I'm going to say this. And it is a remark that is a slur or an allegation, no evidence to back it up. Or you can have an honourable member who says, well, I don't know everything, and then he says something. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, you know, I really didn't come to this place for that. If I wanted to engage in what the King James Version of the Bible calls filth or filthy, there are many rum shops, there are many places that I could go and get involved in this kind of gutter activity. I would not need to come to this place to engage in that kind of stuff. Now, last evening, we heard things like questioning our motives in terms of helping the poor, and allegations that we are not elevating the poor. The Honourable Member for St. James North said he was not sure where the Honourable Member for Christchurch South is living, if we're living in the same Barbados. You've heard, Honourable Deputy Speaker, much of what we have done as a government since coming into office. We have increased old age pensions, non-contributory old age pensions. We've increased contributory old age pensions as well. As a matter of fact, in January of this year, 4.5% pay increases. The Honourable Prime Minister spoke on Monday evening to the underserved professionals. But before we got to the underserved professionals, we addressed the plight of persons who we consider to be the forgotten petrol station attendants, who now enjoy a minimum wage of $8.50 per hour, who now are entitled on an annual basis, at no cost to themselves, medical checks. And not the medical checks where a doctor spends a minute with you and puts something on your chest, listen to your back, look in your eyes, and then tell you to pay $70 at the door or at the secretary. I'm talking about medical tests that are appropriate to persons who are working with fumes. We have done, and I know I don't have a whole lot of time, but we have done so much to start the process of uplifting people in this country. I'll say one thing, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have much more confidence in the people of this country. Much more confidence in the people of this country than the Honourable Member for Christchurch South. Because if you can attempt in this Honourable Chamber that kind of lowbrow attempt to influence the thinking of the ordinary citizens of Barbados, it tells me you have very little respect for them or for their capacity to understand what is happening around them. We were told that there were lots of plans put on the table for development in the Needham's area into the Bridgetown area. Now, on the face of it, one would think that there was merit to the claim. But the claim does not recognize what the entire, I almost have to say the entire universe has recognized. That we lost 2.5 years to a pandemic. And I say the universe because while we were in the pandemic, there were people in the station that is orbiting the Earth, and they knew. So I do not understand how somebody who was on Earth while there was a pandemic in Barbados does not understand that we cannot count 5+ years to say that there has been no development. We had to address the pandemic. I was in St. Peter on Queen Street, sorry, not on Queen Street, on what we used to call the bypass road. The 28th of February, 2020. And after giving a speech, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, the Honourable Prime Minister, said to a group of us, let us, she and the AG, go to Harrison Point. COVID was around the corner. We had to use money to turn Harrison Point, overgrown by bush, into a functioning hospital. A hospital that had more critical care beds than the QEH. We had to buy vaccines. We had to buy other therapeutics. It boggles my mind that in the Barbados of 2024, there are still people who think that Barbadians do not understand what is happening around them. And Madam Deputy Speaker, the Barbadians who I associate with, who speak to me, say to me that the noises that we hear are a vocal minority. Now, why that may be true, I will not make the assumption. And I believe that we have to continue to share with Barbadians what the reality is, and not what is spouted or not what the remarks that are dropped by people who want to infect the brains of right-thinking Barbadians. We were treated to statements like disincentives against NGOs. Now, where does that come from? Disincentives against NGOs. The ministry I have the honor to lead has been, over the past 2 years, putting on seminars. As a matter of fact, up to about 4 weeks ago, a seminar, a workshop on governance for about 40 NGOs in this country, and all of them expressing gratitude for the work this government is doing on their behalf, building their capacity, allowing them to be in a position that they can execute the mandates that they are so passionate about. But somebody comes to this honorable place well, I almost said to dirty the place, but to infect, that is the word I wanted, to infect this space and the minds of Barbadians with things that bear no relationship with reality. An attempt last evening as well to confuse the public, but the effect was confusing himself, and I refer to the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, attempting to explain to this chamber growth, using an illustration and then speaking about, inflation means that there is no growth. Now, the honourable member is not in his seat. We are not surprised only because for 5 years, the honourable member was hardly in his seat. And that is the reason why he has not been able to familiarize himself with the estimates, with the policies of the government. He's not been around. But we've explained on many, many occasions the difference between nominal GDP and real GDP. If he were here, I would have shared with him that real GDP, first of all, the growth in the economy has been real growth. Now, real in economics does not just mean the traditional genuine. Real is used to contrast it with nominal, so that you take out the inflation, you adjust for inflation, so that the growth that we speak about is actual growth, additional goods, additional services, the gross domestic product. What Barbados is producing has increased in real terms. But this is the product of an absent body. And since the mind is connected with the body, if the body is absent, then the mind is also similarly absent. And I take the opportunity not to discredit the honourable member, but just to share that, if you go to school in August, there's a limit to what you can do in an examination.
Honourable member, you've got 5 minutes, sir.
And that's 5 minutes is good enough for me. Let me transition from describing, this bellowing, bellicose kind of behavior to a human-centered budget based on a human-centered approach to development. I spoke about what we've done in the past with respect to some of these persons' occupations and persons in occupations who've been forgotten. In this budget presentation, Madam Deputy Speaker, we heard about the new self-employed regime by the National Insurance and Social Security Service. I hope I've made the name clear for the honourable member for St. Philip North. The National Insurance and Social Security Service, a name chosen by the staff of the organization because it is their intention, supported by the ministry and supported by their minister, that their focus will be on service. A new self-employed regime that allows self-employed persons to contribute at any point in time during the year. We've taken away the requirement for filling out forms, for going in to pay. We're making it easy for people to contribute. The budget presentation spoke to that, a human-centered approach to development. The budget also spoke to how we will speak to moving the minimum wage. This party in office is the first party to establish a national minimum wage in this country. We have set the minimum wage. The Honourable Prime Minister has indicated how we will move forward with that minimum wage. There is also another matter that the Honourable Member for St. George North has been very adamant on, which was not mentioned, which I will mention here, and that is we will be taking into consideration some of the recent work done by the International Labour Organization on the matter of living wages. And at some point in time in the future, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will be hearing more about that. The Honourable Member for St. George North is not known to ease up when she starts a campaign, and I don't mean a political campaign, she will be at us, but we will be adjusting and indexing the minimum wage so that the people of this country, particularly those at the lower economic levels, will be able to stay afloat even as inflation continues. And somebody also needs to tell the Honourable Member for Christchurch South that inflation is not a Bayesian phenomenon. I'm not sure what is going on in his head. The British just released their figures, 3.4%. They're aiming for 2%. They've come from 4 to 3.4. Every country in this world is battling with inflation. And Japan, that has been battling with deflation, is now at the point where they want to move into this inflationary space. But I'm not going to go into that because if he doesn't understand real and nominal, that might be a little bit too high. And this is something about wisdom and too high and some other thing. Polto for police officers, being part of the public officers loan scheme, allowing them to access money for vehicles at zero interest. We heard about the nurses and the sabbatical that they will have after 15 years. We heard about the uniform allowance. We heard about teachers and the Teachers Service Commission. We heard about the 5 personal days. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to say to Barbadians, through you and in this honorable chamber, this budget represents a continuation of the philosophical approach of this party, one that focuses on people, one that sees people, one that hears people, one that recognizes people, one that feels people, one that responds to people as we continue on the journey of lifting up Barbadians. This financial statement budgetary proposals is part of that approach to governance. And like I said in the well, we make no apology for uplifting people. We will not come to this place and in response to a labor clauses concessions bill, take the position of businesses. We come with a fair bill, but we're not going to try to stop workers from being treated well to support, well, I'm not a lawyer, so maybe that is why I don't have to look out for my clients. But we are going to continue our focus on the ordinary people of this country. I support, and the people of St. Peter support the presentation by the Honourable Prime Minister of this country. We believe that this budget represents what government is able to do, even in tough circumstances. It represents how government is able to fashion policy that speaks to the humanity of the population and that attempts on a continuing basis to lift them from where they are, to empower them, and to allow them to be able to enjoy a good standard of living in this country. I support wholeheartedly this bill that is before the House, the presentation that was made to the House, and I commend it to the people of this country.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. Philip West, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First, ma'am, I really want to thank the people of St. Philip West who have given me the privilege to speak in this honorable house, and I thank you for the opportunity to make this contribution as we discuss the budget. Today, I want to talk about education, and I do that because it not only impacts the people of St. Philip West, it impacts people all over this country. We have had a good education system for many years that has been generally good for the people and good for this country. Ma'am, you are sitting in that chair because of our education system. I am standing at this microphone because of that education system, and I believe the opposition leader was able to use poetry and place of substance yesterday because of this very educational system. It is an educational system, Madam Deputy Chair, that allows Ryan from Sion Hill in St. Philip West to be arguably one of the best automotive bodyworkmen in Barbados. It is the same education system that allows Dale from Sandy Hill in St. Philip South to be among one of the best plumbers we have in this country. It is an education system that has allowed Ashley from out in Jade Circle to be one of the most creative, all-round modern hairstylists in Barbados at this time. I say that, Madam Deputy Speaker, because our education system must serve not only poets and plumbers and bodywork men for cars, but also bodywork men and women who are doctors for humans. It must not only serve lawyers, it must serve cosmetologists. The thinking, ma'am, where only academic pursuits are respected and celebrated as excellence, we must evolve our thinking to the reality that technical and vocational skills are now on a rise globally. And as we move towards skills-based hiring, they will soon be taken over as the main means. We have to build, Madam Deputy Speaker, on the education system that we already have. We cannot throw away everything. There are some things we will keep. There are some things that we will introduce for the first time. There are things that we will have to change in significant ways. But the intention is that when we are all done, we create a Barbados where all people feel as if there is a place in this society, in the school system for them. Because the day, Madam, that we continue to allow our system to leave people behind, we are going to find that it is to the detriment not of the people left behind, but of the entire country, because we must all live in one country together. And when there are those who feel as if this place is not for them, the school system is not for them, we as a society don't care about, they become disengaged and apathetic. Bajans will tell you that that is don't care-ish and lawless. We do not want to go there, sir, ma'am. The 11+ exam, of which we have heard much, it has served some of us well, especially those persons who have in fact done well in those exams and have gone on to secondary schools where they've also had good teachers. It has served some of us well. But Madam, do you know that in mathematics, 4 out of 10 children gain less than 50% in the common entrance exam? And that a significant number of those, close to half, gain less than 30%. Do you know that in English, 1 out of 5 children gain less than 50% in that common entrance exam? How do we continue a system in the same way that is leaving 40% or more of this population behind? For too long, we have given lip service to the fact that we have a number of people coming out with CERS, certificates from school. But do you know, Madam, that 11% of the children leave primary school, who left primary school between 2010 and 2022, 11% of those didn't leave with a single certificate. And if that percentage seems small, sir, know that that represents about 7,082 people of this country. Can we continue for this system to work in that way? What this means, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that we really need to put our minds and our hearts towards an education system that the curriculum may look different. The way we teach may look different. What we teach may look different. The way our classrooms are set up may look different. But even though there may be these differences that we need in order to plan for an education system that will serve our children today and in the future, we don't plan We have no intention of diminishing the standards. In fact, part of what we are proposing is that we bring more standards, higher standards, so that it is not about a child simply looking to see how well they will do in an exam several years after they entered the school system, but rather that throughout their journey, from class 1 to class 2 to class 3 to class 4, all the way through, there are different standards that they must meet at different levels in order to move forward. Madam Speaker, there is a voice in this honorable house, loud sometimes to the point of having to apologize for itself, that shouted yesterday, "Do not touch education unless reforms are curriculum." We can check the Hansard because that was verbatim. Do not touch education unless those reforms are curriculum. Madam Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, this government hears that, and in fact, that is why curriculum transformation is one of the central pillars in what we are proposing as part of our education transformation agenda. But understand, Madam, that curriculum cannot be done alone. Cannot be done alone, because when you touch curriculum, you then have to touch the teachers, because the teachers have to be trained to be able to deliver the new curriculum. And the schools have to be touched, Madam. You know why? Because if it is that we are doing a particular biochemistry lab, that lab has to be set up differently, equipped differently than we are doing other things. And therefore, this notion that you can pull out a piece of education and you can then pull it out, and then you can tinker with the specifics of the syllabus, and then you can just shift resources. You know, this pull and tinker and shift, pull, tinker, shift, ma'am, that's what has gotten us here. It almost sounds like a bashment. So we're gonna pull and tinker and shift. We're gonna pull and tinker and shift. Ma'am, we cannot do that. We have to move to a level of transformation that is more significant. We have to take a systems approach. We're going to look at the whole system and be able to see, when we adjust this, how will it affect that? And what are all the elements that it will take for us to bring to Barbados and bring to these children a brighter future for every single child, where we leave none out. Madam, you know, we were told we shouldn't touch education. But you know why? Because we did not touch education, we now have buildings in which we do education that have been sick, that are in a state of disrepair, and that basically are not all fit for purpose. As we take off roofs in one place, we are discovering that the metal has rotted. As we go to clean one area, we realize that the cleaning needs to happen in several others. And that is because we didn't touch education for so long. But what are we doing now, Madam? We have determined that we are going to implement a more comprehensive maintenance plan. This Ministry of Education cannot keep responding only. So you will notice, Madam, that on March 6th this year, a formal procurement process started for us to, engineers to give express interest to go out and properly do condition assessments. Condition assessments were done by the ministry before, but they were not all done to the level of thoroughness and attention to engineering details as well as we will be doing now. And those audits, Madam, will then inform the more comprehensive maintenance plan for all public schools. What are we doing? We are upgrading and modernizing the infrastructure across the primary and the secondary schools, so that we can use models that are more suited to climate, that are more energy smart, that seek to attend to water conservation, that allows the classrooms to look different. We now need to look at new models. We need to think of, what does the classroom of tomorrow look like? And how do we now, as we do our refurbishments and our new constructions, make sure that we are able to attend to this? And so, ma'am, you would notice that on March 7th, the Modern School Infrastructure Design Competition to generate designs from local architects of what the future of schools could look like in this country was launched. It does not mean that we are not continuing to repair as they stand in place, but we recognize that we must also transform the space for the way we learn and the way instruction is done and for the needs of a 21st century. Madam Deputy Speaker, because we did not touch education, our curriculum has not seen any significant revamping or change or revision for nearly a quarter of a century. We are now, we can say, Madam, that a civics curriculum was introduced in this country again in September of 2022. Last year, in 2023, for the Class 1 students, that civics curriculum was turned into a game because we discovered that the ability to absorb the information and to interact with the information and better learning happened when you start to gamify aspects of the curriculum. We also introduced a digital literacy course in our curriculum. Right now, ma'am, 12 selected primary schools and 8 secondary schools are in the pilot phase of this, and we're now revising to ensure that we might be able to roll out the full digital literacy program going forward. Coding has been introduced in our nursery schools, from nursery to primary to secondary. About 60%, I'm told, of our nursery schools now have some form of coding. Coding is in all primary schools with some robotics currently. And from the first to third forms of all secondary schools have coding and robotics on their curriculum. We have determined, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we will acquire the services of curriculum design expertise, because it's not just tinkering with the individual subjects, but it is how do you design and schedule curriculum across all schools to ensure that even if a student wants to take a particular elective or course at one other school other than the one to which they attend on a regular basis, we have that capacity so to do. On March 6th of this year, we launched the National Task Force on Literacy Education. This is significant because literacy and numeracy in this country, Madam, is, let me be generous, it is just not optimal. And we need to make sure that we are taking a strategic approach and not just a piecemeal approach. That is why the National Task Force on Literacy Education was launched. I share this, Madam, because what we have started to do in curriculum transformation and reform, it has already begun. And these are just a few examples of how we have started to move in the right direction as it relates to curriculum. Madam Deputy Speaker, because we did not touch education for a long time, a number of our teachers and our school leaders and our educators didn't have the opportunity to keep themselves sharp on the cutting edge of what is happening with teaching and facilitating learning and even administering the education sector. And so what have we done? We have put in place a program to reskill and upskill and equip our educators at all levels so that they can deliver better for our children. $450,000 more this year is being given to Erdeston Teachers Training College so that they can continue to upgrade their programs and to build their partnerships with Columbia University and others to be able to bring more. The Educators Hub was set up. It was piloted since Easter of 2022, and now it has 109 courses curated specifically for teachers. That is through the National Transformation Initiative. And those teachers can now go online and continuously upgrade their skills in their own time, when they're light, in the middle of the house, in the middle of the night, and early in the morning. It is self-directed learning in a meaningful way. We have intensified professional development for all school leaders, and I am going to tell you, if you speak to many of them, they'll tell you they haven't had so much training facilitated by the ministry in the last 12 months. They've had more than they have had in years. You heard of our master teachers. The Prime Minister spoke of the fact that by September of this year, we intend to have 22 master teachers in our school system. There are some teachers who are good at what they do, and their first love is teaching. But like anybody else, they want promotion and they want to have additional resources. And the only way they can do it is then to become a deputy principal or a principal. The master teacher route, it gives them a pathway to be able to continue to do what they love for the children of this country and still be able to have upward mobility in their profession. Madam Deputy Speaker, because we did not touch education for a while, the special needs education received less attention than it should have. You heard our Prime Minister in her delivery of the budget speak of some of the incentives being given to the parents of those children who have special needs. You heard of credits that are being given to those organizations who set up centers that deal with education and life skills for those with special needs. And when we say special needs, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are talking about the gifted as well as those who have remedial needs. Madam, we are continuing to ensure that diagnostic testing is increasing. When you look at the estimates for the Ministry of Education for this year, you will see we have augmented resources in collaboration with the Ministry of Health to help us better be able to diagnose and to be able to intervene and give the response. Madam, because we did not touch education for a while, our legislation, our Education Act and the regulations are very much out of date. It speaks still, Madam, to senior and composite schools, and you would know, ma'am, having been in the system for so long, that it is nearly 3 decades since such categories existed. The Education Act, it does not speak to the mandatory provision of details that would data that will enable the Ministry of Education to make decisions. It does not speak to the use of technology, and it does not hold the ministry accountable for providing spaces for the same special needs students. Madam, this Education Act needs to be overhauled, and what are we doing? We have made provision in the estimates for this year to ensure that we are able to respond in a meaningful way to legislation that will create the kind of environment for 21st century education in Barbados. Madam, I could continue. But because we didn't touch education, so many things have been left undone or underdone. And we now in the Ministry of Education are doing our best to make sure that the children of St. Philip West and the children of this entire country are able to have a better experience within the education system. We cannot just tinker with curriculum as some might have us to do. We have to train teachers. We have to change the infrastructure to create a better environment for the students to learn and thrive. We have to ensure, Madam, that the policies are in place. As I look across this ministry, and we currently have someone who's working with us, looking at the policies of this ministry, looking at what are the policies that are required to ensure that there's good direction within this ministry with regards to schools in the 21st century. There are so many policies we do not have. And I really want to say that there are a number of policies that will be coming come September of 2024. And I know one of the major policies that many have had concerns about, and I too have had concerns about, is the National Policy for School Safety and Security. And I really want to thank the members of the Defense Force, the Barbados Fire Service, the Department of Emergency Management, the Ministry of Labor, Social Security, and the Third Sector, the Barbados Union of Teachers, the Barbados Secondary Teachers Unions, the Barbados Workers Union, the National Union of Public Workers, the Barbados National Students Council, the Unity Workers Union, the National Council of Parent Teachers Association, an independent advisor, I haven't asked your permission for his name in particular, the Barbados Association of Principals of Public Secondary Schools, the Principals of Primary Schools, the Barbados Police Service, the Ministry of Education. All of these, Madam Deputy Principal, are part of a national coalition, an advisory coalition on school safety and security, who are currently working on the new policy. It is in draft and it has been returned to that coalition for their review. There are other, I see you, ma'am.
Ma'am, you do have 5 minutes more. So
I do have,
continue.
ma'am. I could not end this without looking and thanking the Ministry of the Public Service and the Prime Minister for the work they are doing to help us accelerate the establishment of the Teaching Service Commission. As you know, the Service Commission, the Ministry of the Public Service, they have responsibility for doing the recruitment for every single government ministry. Well, of course, the judiciary, they have their own commission. But it is time that teachers have had to wait, sometimes in a way that has not been helpful to them when it comes time for their appointments and their transfers, etc. It is time that we have a dedicated service dealing with this large number who will be able to bring greater efficiency and effectiveness when it comes to recruitment and appointment and discipline and training and awarding and recognizing and licensing and developing all kinds of other support systems that our teachers absolutely need. We need to continue, ma'am, to ensure that we bring a comprehensive approach to the way in which we seek to transform education. Why? Because there's no one piece of education, of what is part of that system of education, that can be tinkered with without impacting other things. We have an opportunity now, Madam Deputy Speaker, to design a system that suits everyone. And if we do not take this opportunity now, I wonder when we will. When we look at what is happening with education around the rest of the world, and we even look at the NACE report of the last government, which was, I believe it was in 2010, and that has sat unimplemented for a significant part of time. A NACE report which was well done, I must say, Madam, and which is very much aligned with many of the recommendations that are being made now for education transformation. We need to put aside some of the petty differences about who will get to do what when, and be able to understand that if we do not act now, we will ensure that our children are not just left behind, but that they will be left out entirely. With these views, I thank you, Madam, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 1:30.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 1:30. Honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This honorable chamber is suspended until 1:30.